like armchair racing, isn't it? No, you're coming through. Kane Scott gets a bit of a tap for his efforts.
13th, 14th and 15th in this battle group. But yeah, McIntyre's just set the fastest lap again at a 140.87. And Scott McLaughlin at a 141.7. So I think the next lap for Scott McLaughlin will be the one to watch to see if he starts now losing time, being on the wet tyres as opposed to John McIntyre on the slicks, because there is definitely some drying lines around this racing circuit.
Look, the speed of Scott McLaughlin and Craig Baird around this part of the track would indicate that the wet tyre is still in its own, but we're at that transition stage right now. Johnny McIntyre is going to be quick naturally because he doesn't have any traffic in front of him. These other guys are still battling, and you're right. Scott McLaughlin's been released. He's been released for the last complete lap. Craig Baird going a bit wide there. So what can McLaughlin do in terms of lap time? Does he have an answer for Johnny McIntyre out front?
And again, McIntyre is quickest to the second sector split, heading down towards the start-finish line with a 9-second advantage over chasing Andy Booth and Scott McLaughlin. So Holden second and third.
You see Scott McLaughlin, Craig Baird for that matter, they're driving a different line to everybody else. They're looking for the wet part of the track, trying to cool those wet tyres down. There's your answer. Scott McLaughlin at 39.6, fastest lap of the race. So
yeah, John McIntyre at 39.9.
At the moment, the advantage is still on the guys on wet tyres. Another couple of laps, it's going to swing back to the likes of Johnny McIntyre, Andy Booth and Angus Fogg, who are all on those slick tyres.
So the halfway point of the final race of the championship of the NZV8s here from Hamilton, the first time that we've had the championship decider here at the ITM 400. John McIntyre leads, being chased by Andy Booth, Scott McLaughlin, Angus Fogg, Wade Henshaw and Andy Knight. Still managing to circulate there without that front splitter. And probably downforce here, and that sort of the aero effect's not so critical here on the street course.
No, exactly the opposite, mate. It's very critical. So he's doing an amazing job to keep that car on the track. Probably because it's wet. Oh, and saying that, he can't do any more damage when he hits the curb because there's nothing to damage. It's all being left behind somewhere else on the track. But look, when it starts drying and you want to carry a bit more corner speed through, that's where the downforce will come into its own. So he's surviving at the moment, but you can't help but think he's going to start suffering very shortly. But here we go, mate. Look, we're starting to see a few more yellow boxes, and that's going in the favour.
Angus Fogg's just gone quickest to the second sector, chasing down the likes of John McIntyre, Andy Booth and Scott McLaughlin. So maybe as the fuel starts burning off, Foggy's setup maybe starting to get better as the
look how relaxed this guy here is. Look, he's looking in the mirror. He's just adjusting the balaclava, the helmet, whatever it happens to be. He is in the box seat. He has full control of this race.
Another fastest lap at 39.2 for John McIntyre. 39.1 for Andy Booth, a 39.4 for Scott McLaughlin, and a 38.5 for Angus Fogg, setting the fastest lap. Can Angus Fogg come back here in the NZV8s in Hamilton?
Next week on Gillette Motorsport, it's a big Easter Sunday show.
So Angus Fogg just setting the fastest lap, and he's starting to monster Scott McLaughlin. For the first time, McLaughlin was... well, he was only 2 tenths slower than the likes of John McIntyre, but he was about 6 to 7 tenths slower than Angus Fogg.
Yeah, the simple reason being, mate, there's 9 corners here, and I think there's only 2 or 3 now that are going to favour the guy on the wet tyres. And those tyres aren't long enough in duration to get a gain or a benefit that we saw early in the race. So guys like Scott McLaughlin and Craig Baird have done all the hard yards so far, of course, starting from pit lane. They're going to start getting filtered backwards, unfortunately, because that's just the nature of the beast when you try drive on these wet tyres on a drying track.
Yeah, well, Craig Baird circulating, doing 139.1, so he was actually a tenth quicker than the race leader and starting to make some small gains on Angus Fogg, even though Angus was quicker on that last lap. Wade Henshaw still in the mix. What is it about Hamilton that Wade Henshaw likes? He was one of the stars here last year.
Probably just agrees with his drying style. He's very aggressive. He loves getting things sideways, and sometimes they get rewarded on parts of track. Now Nick Ross is going to come through. Look at how Paul Manuel opened up the gap for him on Andy Knight.
Yeah,
Andrew Anderson got a run on him here, like he didn't drive into the back of him.
Anderson was actually quickest to the second sector on this lap, so he's got some pace now as well in the ITM Holden. So Andy Knight just starting to filter back through towards the end of the top 10. McIntyre goes quickest with a 1:38.209. Wade Henshaw this time dropping into the 1:37s. 1:37.3 for the fastest lap by nearly a full second.
Certainly got comfortable in that car of his. These part of the race, the tyres will be up to the optimum temperature.
Angus Fogg trying to get around Scott McLaughlin.
Ross is doing a good job there too, with one of the fastest times, 37.9. So certainly not lacking for car speed at this stage of the weekend.
So John McIntyre out in front. He's got a 9.6 second advantage. So he's extended over the last couple of laps. That gap was down to about 8.5 seconds. Maintaining the race lead and the championship lead.
Scott McLaughlin is doing everything he can, looking for every ounce of water to help cool those tyres off. As you'll see, the other man in the United Video car, Craig Beard, he's not doing that. He's just sticking to the racing line. He doesn't care about trying to cool the tyres off because he knows in a couple of laps those guys are going to be suffering anyway, so why prolong it? Wayne Henshaw's got a run on him here. Go down the inside, of course, but when Wayne Henshaw does this, of course, Jamie, he's on the racing or the dirty line, sorry. So the advantage is actually not in his favour right now. There you go, look for the crossover. It's obviously dry enough now with a slick tyre. It's definitely coming into its own. There you
Angus
go.
Fogg's got back ahead of Scott McLaughlin. I was about to say McIntyre, with the positions on track, had a 32-point lead over Angus Fogg. That's just changed and narrowed back to 27 points. But Foggy needs to be ahead of John McIntyre to be in with a chance of winning this championship. Really still the advantage is with John McIntyre looking for his third NZV8 crown. There's the Fogg team looking on.
You see it's a nervous smile though, can't you? It's one of those ones where you've got to say cheese and look at the camera, guys, because they'll be biting. Because at the moment, all those guys in pit lane, they'll be hearing every gear change. They'll be wondering now, did we do that bolt up tight enough? This is a team sport, the best of times, so Angus Fogg really has the easy job. He's got to drive, but all the mechanics, all the engineers, they have a major contribution to how these cars go. So they'll be feeling every corner of every lap that these guys are going through at this stage of the championship.
Yeah, living every lap with their drivers like Mark does in the commentary. He never stops moving, sitting in next beside me. John McIntyre's just gone quickest again with a 1:36.65. So I think we're probably about 2 laps past that crossover point where the slicks are definitely better now and the wet-tired guys are starting to go away as the McIntyre team in conference there in pit lane. Richard Field there with the radio up next to his ear. So McIntyre, he is way quicker. He was 2 seconds quicker than Scott McLaughlin, first of those drivers on the wet tyres that started out of pit lane.
We did call it, didn't we? Said around about halfway through those guys who were suffering, so it was a gamble worth taking because if Mother Nature had played her part and continued raining, and they would have come into their own.
It's a special Gillette Motorsport show.
Stable mates, Paul Manuel, Nick Rossi, of course, another Holden, Andrew Anderson. Now, the ITM car you see is on slicks. The man in front of him will be on wet, so that's the difference between the two. That's
the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th positions with Andy Knight currently scored in the 10th position. Got a great start, but he's just been falling back, just struggling with front-end grip, obviously. There's Craig Beard now. You can see that gap. He's really starting to fall off Wade Henshaw, and Henshaw sideways goes past McLaughlin, but McLaughlin gets him back. Just got in a little bit too hot and couldn't stop the Easy Way car options forward into 1.
Of course, the grip is changing every lap they're doing. It's getting drier and drier, and as these guys keep forging into the corners, they think, well, I reckon I can break another 1.5 metres, 2 metres. Now, it doesn't sound much to everybody on TV, but trust me, it is an eternity when you're in one of these cars at this stage of the race. The tyres are hot, the brakes are hot. It's been a long weekend. Andrew Anderson's got a run on Manuel coming through 3. If he can stay there, he'll take the position because Paul will know to back out of this. Smart enough too, which is good. Timmy Edgell, he's having a good race 3. Seeing how the rest of the weekend's gone for him.
So John McIntyre with a 26-point lead in the championship of the race lead. Angus Fogg's just set the fastest lap at a 1:35.3.
Andrew Anderson.
He's got the wall off the exit. It's ripped the right front wheel off the ITM Holden.
Okay, now depending where he parks his car, this could bring the safety car out, regather everybody up, and it could be game on. Now, what's he going to do with this? Is he going to park it out of the way?
David Hopper. That's at turn 3. That's where Paul Dumbrell went into the beginning of the weekend in the V8 Supercar qualifying
now,
session.
another interesting fact, Jamie. If they red flag this race, the race is over. They've gone past the 75% mark, 16 laps. So lap 12 was the threshold there. So what will they do?
2 cars stranded out on the racetrack. The
safety
final
car
race
is out.
The NZV8 safety car definitely is out on the track.
There we go. Look, that was a big hit. We know that right there. Now, what caused it to break? Okay, hitting the tyres, so...
It's broken first and then plowed him into the concrete.
Yeah, now what happened to David Hopper? Somewhere else, either way.
Yeah, it was further down the track behind this at turn number 3.
Very big hit there by Andrew Anderson. We're just praising how well he was doing.
Just as Angus Fogg had set the fastest lap of the race at a 33.9. Here's another look at it from front on. Hits the tyre stack, breaks the right front suspension and into the concrete. Paul Manuel did a great job to avoid hitting Andy. The
steering arm had clapped to that stage with the kiss into the tyres. And of course, the rest of it just catastrophic.
Here's David Hoppers, and he's gone straight through the paint.
Yeah.
He's just misjudged the entry to 3.
He's just got over the curve, and as we heard from Hayden McKenzie earlier on, when you hit that blue paint, you just accelerate like there's no tomorrow. Now, interesting, championship contenders, Johnny McIntyre leading, Angus Fogg is third. He is separated now by Andy Booth. This is going to come down quite possibly to a one-lap sprint if they can get those cars away quick enough.
26 points is the difference between McIntyre and Fogg. There's the McIntyre team. They did not need the safety car.
Well, I am going to agree to disagree. I think it's the best thing for them because these track rescue guys here, they work miracles, but I doubt they can work such a miracle as to extract those cars out of here in 2 laps. So it's quite possible that this thing may finish under the yellow flag. Let's hope not. I hope it goes green with 2 to go.
So John McIntyre leads the safety car, comes out from Andy Booth and Angus Fogg. Just 26 points at the moment, the difference between John McIntyre and Angus Fogg in this championship chase. So the recovery crew retrieving the Hopper Holden from turn number 3 and further down the track. They'll also be doing the same with the Anderson ITM Commodore. What a weekend. What a championship, though, Mark. We've had so many ups and downs. It's been so hard to pick. I mean, Angus Fogg's really seemingly had things under control. While it hasn't quite gone to plan over the last couple of rounds, that gearbox failure in race number 2 certainly really hurt him and handed the advantage back to John McIntyre.
Yeah, it did. Unfortunately, it had the mechanical failure at the wrong end of the championship. Everybody's putting their ponchos back on, so does that mean we're starting to see a bit of rain? No, I think it's a lot of very supportive people. Now, these guys will be wanting for the safety car to continue. And I'll tell you who else will want the safety car to stay out.
Yeah, there's a little bit of rain coming back in.
Sorry, Scott McLaughlin and Craig Beard for the...
what's gone on here?
Wade Henshaw has managed to collect the rescue. Now, that will take a very dim view of that because the drivers should be driving within themselves. So that does not happen now.
Henshaw was 4th.
Here we go.
Here's the Peak Antifreeze replay. Oh, dear.
Oh, mate, that's a big hit. It's one of the biggest hits of the weekend.
Well, that truck's probably weighing the better part of 3.5 tonne, and it just about managed to pick that up.
You can just be thankful there was actually no one standing there, but however he got there, we don't know. Red
flags.
Championship, Johnny McIntyre.
That is it. John McIntyre wins title number 3. I'm not too sure if the team's on the radio yet. Wait for the reaction.
Look at his face, mate. He's just been told. Congratulations, Johnny. Well done, team.
There's the Richard Field, their team, celebrating down in pit lane. 3-time BNCV8 champion, John McIntyre. Look at the emotion.
Jubilation, and you can understand why. Look, they just keep persevering, didn't they? Of course, got a feel for Angus Fogg with those guys there. They've led the championship for so long, but the man of the moment, the team of the moment, Johnny McIntyre Racing.
Well, what an end to this championship. John McIntyre takes the win, the red flag stopping the race prematurely and taking out his 3rd championship. Andy Booth finishing 2nd. A disappointed Angus Fogg. Well, he fought all the way to the end, but it was race 2 that really cost him. Wade Henshaw is scored in the 4th position ahead of Scott McLaughlin, followed by Craig Beard, Nick Ross, Andy Knight, Tim Edgell and Paul Manuel. But it's congratulations to the Johnny McIntyre show.
Well, to start with, congratulations. I think if we talked a few months ago, you would have said, how could this happen?
Exactly, even coming to this weekend, you know, we only really had a 50-50 chance, but just shows you anything can happen, and you add some water to a street circuit and you end up with some crazy things.
I suppose they talk about finding another gear. I think Angus lost a gear and that kind of opened the door, and I got the impression that once you got a sniff of it, you weren't going to let this one go.
No, you're right. In this morning's race, we had a lot of pace compared to yesterday, and I'd sort of bided my time, watched Angus. He cleaned out the first chicane there, and I thought he did a lot of damage to his car. But anyway, I got up on him, passed him on merit, and then we pulled away to a win. And then this afternoon was the same. I really had my eye on this afternoon, and I wasn't going to let it go.
Will this be the beautiful end to your NZV8s before you head to Super Tours? How is it looking for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and follow the Super Tours and get involved in that. So, you know, everything has its time, and NZV8 has been fantastic to us. It's been a great category, and you know, we've built our team base on it, and now it's time for a new challenge. So nice to tick the box before we leave.